Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I appreciate the invitation. I've had the pleasure of knowing Rabbi Jessica for many years, and I consider myself a fan. So you did wonderfully with the hire. So she's remarkable, a real dynamo. Thank you to the Speakers Committee, Barbara, and everybody, thank you. Thank you to Marion and Sam for the hospitality, and to everybody for the chance to spend the weekend. I have a very difficult but very important topic tonight. Tomorrow morning it'll be an uplifting talk about Truman's work with Weizmann, Ben-Gurion, Eben, and others on statehood for Israel in 1948. But tonight, we think we know all there is to know about history, but we don't know the half of it. In 2014, I was able to break one of the last big secrets, suppressed stories from the Holocaust that occurred in the waning hours of the Holocaust in World War II. I found a letter in the Royal Archives in England by a major named Noel Till. And in the letter, Noel Till said he's never seen anything like it, when thousands and thousands and thousands of Holocaust survivors died horrifically as they were signing the surrender. So I had the letter. I called the Holocaust Museum. I called noted historians and rabbis. I called Yad Vashem. I called the World War II Museum, the Imperial War Museum, and everybody said this didn't happen. And I said, well, I didn't think it did either. I never came across it, but the letter looks legitimate. So I set the letter aside, continued with my research. I was working on a book on World War II. And by dumb luck, I found a second letter, which is how I found the first letter. Doesn't lightning work that way and discovery work that way, by dumb luck? And this is from a general named Mills Roberts. He was the British general in charge of the 6th Commando, which is a special forces unit. And he said in his letter, I was on the northern German shore of the southern Baltic Sea. And I stood there and watched countless thousands of Holocaust survivors all die gruesomely. He said, in my 40 years in uniform, nothing has moved me to tears and to my knees like that one event. So now I had two letters. I spent weeks and weeks calling the Royal Archives, members of Parliament, who's who in England, the Allied powers, trying to get access to these secret classified documents or whatever it was, and I couldn't get anywhere. And then I was invited to give a lecture tour of D-Day, as I do every couple years. So I was on the Normandy landing beaches, and a woman walked up to me and said, I really enjoy your lecture. I started talking to her, and she was around my age, which is to say an extremely youthful mid-60s. And her name was Deborah Oppenheimer. It turned out she's an Academy Award-winning filmmaker. She made the great movie in 2001 on the Kinder transport into the arms of strangers. I said, oh my goodness, I love your film. I show it to my classes all the time. They all cry, and it starts a great conversation. She's on the board of the U.S. Holocaust Museum. She was Obama's envoy on anti-Semitic hate, fighting against it. So we started talking, and it turned out her mother and father, a former Holocaust survivor and Kinder survivor, used to go to my weekly lectures at Florida Atlantic University and sit in the front row. I knew them for years. So I told her what I had found, and I couldn't get anywhere. And she says to me, well, don't worry, I know Prince Charles, I'll give him a call. I know Dame Judi Dench, I'll give her a call. Sir Attenborough produced one of my movies, I'll give him a call. And I'm thinking she had way too much French wine in Normandy. 2 days later, I get a call from the head of the Royal Archives saying, Debbie called. She said, you're her bro, her buddy, and you found something important. Now, mind you, I had spent weeks and weeks and weeks of them hanging up on me. I sent letters, I sent emails, I sent copies of some of my books that had won awards to show them I wasn't a crackpot. And they called and they said, what can we do for you? So I told them about the two letters. They said, we're putting our best archivists on them. 48 hours later, I'm in Paris. I get a call at my hotel. They said, Eureka, we found 800 pages of top secret classified documents from May of 1945. What would you like us to do with them? So after I got up off the floor, I said, you need to declassify them, but I want first access. And I said, I'm going to get a plane ticket. If I can't get a plane ticket, I'm going to jump in the ocean and start to swim. I'll be there soon. So this is the story that I found. The story is about the final moments of the war and the Holocaust. It's also about a ship. 1 second. There we go. It's about a ship. Her name was the Cap Arcona, C-A-P-A-R-C-O-N-A. She was named for Cape Arcone, which is the only cape in Germany on the southern Baltic Sea. She was built in 1927. Why? As Germany was the belligerent nation during World War I, the Allies, the victors, confiscated all German ships. They were either confiscated, sunk, or flagged under another country. Germany was hit with steep war reparations, demilitarization, deindustrialization, and Germany was on its knees. So a great shipbuilding company called Blum and Voss, V-O-S-S, they're still there, they wanted to build a replica of the Titanic. She looks a bit like her, except she has 3 funnels. The Titanic had 4 smokestacks. Monarchs from across Europe, A-list Hollywood actors, the world's creme de la creme, all sailed on this ship. She was nicknamed the Floating Palace, the Queen of the South Atlantic, and so forth and so on. So arguably, in the late 20s, the most celebrated ocean liner on Earth. All that changes. First in well, there's a poster. There's the specs on the ship. All that, there's a Hollywood actress. There were heated pools, 7-course dinners, not unlike what you have probably here at Longboat Key in Sarasota. From the drive that I saw on the way in, this is a nice place. So she was the Titanic, everybody. She was the Titanic. Everything changes in January of 1933, and then again on September 1st, 1939. January 1933, Hitler comes to power. Hitler loves big ships, and he loved this ship. It was his favorite ship until the Bismarck was built. He nicknamed it the Nazi Titanic. He tasked Joseph Goebbels, his propaganda minister, with making propaganda films and propaganda moves to celebrate this ship. What they basically did is they said, hey world, your Titanic sunk, the Nazi Titanic is still afloat and the greatest ship. 1939, September 1, of course, Blitzkrieg in Poland, World War II begins. Now, Hitler did not want to lose his favorite ship, so I put a red mark on the north coast of Poland, present-day Gdynia near Gdansk. The Germans had called it Gottenhafen. And they stripped all the paint off, they took all the silk and Persian carpets out, they took the gold out, and there she sat, rusting, so she wouldn't be attacked. And all that changes again in 1942. In 1942, in a very rare moment of a wee bit of lucidity, Hitler calls a meeting with his senior aides and Joseph Goebbels. And Hitler says, we could lose the war. Remember, by this point in time, the battle for Britain, Operation Sea Lion, had gone south. Thank goodness for the Nazis, right? A few Royal Air Force pilots beat the Luftwaffe. The Southern Front in North Africa, even Rommel was beaten and kicked out of North Africa. The front in Russia, the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa, entire divisions of Nazis froze to death, were killed, or were captured. So Hitler tells Goebbels, I want you to create some kind of new propaganda front that's so magnificent and so awful at the same time, it's going to make the world hate the Allies and love us, the Nazis. This is how delusional they were. Well, what is this great propaganda idea? Hitler didn't know. But what Hitler and Goebbels did know were movies. Goebbels made hundreds of ham-fisted, sophomoric propaganda films. Probably the 2 most infamous were Judd Seuss, Seuss the Jew, and Der Wigger Jew, the Eternal Jew. And in every one of Goebbels' movies, it was the same plot. There was an idyllic German village until a Jew moved in. Unless you realize the obvious, the lights got darker whenever he appeared, rats scurried behind the character. It was that crescendo of ominous, foreboding violin music, and then the town would rise up with pitchforks, drive him out of town, or kill him, and everybody lived happily ever after. Every movie was obviously a ham-fisted propaganda front. So Hitler and Goebbels are watching movies. I'm going to move forward, sake of time. They're watching movies, and as best as I can tell, Hitler and Goebbels love movies. These are the three movies they watch the most. King Kong, all right, I get it. Gone with the Wind, classic. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, I have a daughter, and when she was little, we probably watched it 20 times, right? So it took place in the Black Forest, right, in Germany. So they watched these movies over and over again. It was not uncommon for them to watch 3 on a Saturday night, 3 back-to-back-to-back Hollywood blockbusters with German translators and interpreters in the middle of the war. And then afterwards, they would sit for hours and debate the cinematography, the script, the acting. They considered themselves connoisseurs of film. Basically, Germany's Siskel and Ebert, right? And my students would have no idea about that reference. So, but then one night, according to Goebbels' diary, they were watching a movie. And after the movie, instead of debating for hours, they just sat. The movie left them so emotionally exhausted. Didn't that happen to you with, let's say, Schindler's List, or with me, the new Nuremberg movie, right, Rabbi Jessica, one of your points of expertise? Schindler's List, right? Frozen. Yeah, they left them so emotionally drained that instead of debating, they watched the script, the credits, and they realized, as Goebbels wrote, that all the directors, producers, actors, screenwriters, script were all Jewish. And Hitler kicks over all the chairs in the viewing room. He's livid. But that's when he got the idea. The propaganda thing that Goebbels is supposed to do to change the war. You, Goebbels, are going to make the world's most dastardly propaganda film. That's it. But you're not going to make something like this. You're going to make something like Casablanca. That's the film they hated the most. Because wasn't it basically an anti-Nazi propaganda film? Yet it was action, drama, romance hybrid, right? So you, Goebbels, are going to make a movie. At that time, there was and there they are sitting and watching movies. There was a Nazi screenwriter named Bratt, with 2 T's, working on a script for the Titanic, long before Mr. Cameron, right? And they said, that's it. We need an action, drama, romance hybrid. We're going to make a Titanic movie. So they decided to do it. Now, they had a star. There they are watching an early cut of it. They had a star for the movie. Didn't they have a ship that was a replica of the Titanic? Yeah, it was sitting on the Polish coast. So they repainted it, the red, the black. They put all the gold and carpeting back in, and they put a fake 4th funnel on it, and they used the ship to film the movie. Now, even though they're in the middle of a war, Hitler authorizes an unlimited budget for the film. Even to today, it's the world's most expensive propaganda film ever made, even in 2026. Excuse me. And he reassigns entire units of the Wehrmacht, the Kriegsmarine, and others to be in the movie. And here is on the lower left, went down the wrong road. You can see the film poster. On the top right, there's the sinking scene, and there's the director, Herbert Selpin, giving instructions for the SOS. Lower right, that's a handsome matinee actor who's starring, and that's Selpin, the director, with the ascot and sunglasses, looking like he's straight from Central Casting. Top left, that's the captain. So they have an unlimited budget. They're going to make this grand, great movie. Fortunately, everything that could go wrong goes wrong. The lead actress gets pregnant from one of the soldiers. They light up the set at night and the Allies bomb it. It's behind budget, everything. Everything's going wrong. So one day, the director, Selpin there, shows up on set, and he's drunk. And everything's going wrong, and he curses Hitler, Goebbels, and the Nazi Party. So they hang him. Surprisingly, they couldn't find another director to finish the film. As Goebbels wrote, they also realized that all of Germany's great directors were in the concentration camps. So they got a guy who's a B-movie guy to finish the movie. And there's the poster. When Goebbels sits down to watch his masterpiece, he's aghast. It was supposed to be filled with Nazi propaganda. The director had the last laugh from the grave. It was filled with anti-Nazi propaganda. After all that, in 1943, they banned the movie. They banned the movie after everything. Now, you all love James Cameron's Titanic? I think the best Titanic movie was the 1958 British film, A Night to Remember. No one in here is old enough to remember 1958. So I'll take you back there. I'm an historian. Anybody see this? Yeah, right. It's great, right? One of the things that makes it great, are you ready for this? Every scene involving the ship, the British director just took the old Nazi footage. Goebbels no longer had copyright. There she is. That's the actual Nazi Titanic. There's her lifeboats. There's the ship. So you can actually see the ship. Now, after the movie was banned, they took the ship back to the Polish coast, stripped all the paint off it again, and there she sat rusting. In the winter of 1945, it's one of the most infamous, horrific periods in world history. Hitler issues his liquidation decree. Any camp that's not yet liberated, I want everything liquidated. People, papers, the camp. And the carnage is just unspeakable. However, as they're doing all that, Heinrich Himmler enters our story in March of 1945. Himmler goes around to different concentration camps and says, if your camp's not yet liquidated or liberated, he tells the commandant, I want every Jew marched to the Baltic coast. They first went here. This is in Hamburg, Germany. It's a camp called KZ Neuengamme, Neuengamme. It was a brick-making concentration camp. And tens of thousands of folks are marched to Neuengamme. From there, they're marched 60-some kilometers to the Baltic. What's the purpose? What is Heinrich Himmler up to? He orders that the Nazi Titanic come to the Baltic to pick him and tens of thousands of Holocaust survivors up. He's going to sail the ship to England and negotiate with Truman or Churchill or Montgomery or Ike or someone that he'll give them all the Allies, all these Holocaust survivors, if they save his rear end. So you have tens of thousands of survivors march to the ship and thousands are put on the ship. Now we're in May of 1945, the final fitful throes of the war. And as Himmler's on his way to hop on the ship, he gets caught. He then takes a cyanide pill and commits suicide. So what happens from there is there's no Nazis in charge. Hitler committed suicide, Eva Braun committed suicide, Goebbels and his wife committed suicide after they killed their 6 kids. Hitler even ordered that his favorite dog, Blondie, his German Shepherd, be killed. Everyone. There's no command structure. The war's ending. There were 2 Nazis in charge of the Baltic coast. Count George von Basewitz-Baer, who's basically the SS officer, and this guy, Karl Kaufmann. He's basically the governor. They have an idea. Let's put everybody on that ship. Let's fill the ship with explosive fuel, and when we're forced to surrender, we'll blow it up, put it on the bottom of the Baltic. As they're filling it up and ready to blow the ship up, they hear a deafening roar. They look skyward, and 6 squadrons of Typhoon Mark 1B bombers fly in. Here they are. It's not a big bomber like a B-17 or B-24, or if you follow World War II history, a British Lancaster or Halifax. It's not a small fighter like a Mustang or a Spitfire. It's a hybrid. It's a bomber and a fighter. You can see they have big guns on the wings. They can carry a rocket or a clip for a 500-pound bomb. Each squadron has 8 planes times 6 squadrons. They fly into the Baltic. They see the largest ship they've ever seen, the Nazi Titanic. She's low in the water, which means she's full of people and fuel. There had been a rumor that the Nazis were going to flee to Norway for one last stand, one final redoubt. So all 6 bombers targeted the Nazi Titanic, blew up and sunk the ship. filled with countless thousands and thousands of survivors, many from Auschwitz, many who had survived the death march. It's history's worst case of friendly fire. It's the last tragedy of World War II. It's history's worst maritime disaster and the bloodiest hour of the entire Holocaust, all in one event. The British and the Allies were so aghast. They wanted to deliver a clean victory with the surrender. So they ordered everything classified, top secret. And it sat from 1945 until I found it by dumb luck in 2014, deep in the bowels of the archives. And when I opened them up and went through the documents, they were haphazardly thrown in there. They hadn't been opened. There were a handful of survivors, against all odds, as there always is, right? Are you like me, that with every week I learn of a new survivor and a new example of courage and heroism during the Holocaust that I still, after all these years, can't wrap my brain around? This is Berek Jakubowicz, Polish as the name would suggest. He and his brother Jozek were little kids, and they were marched on the death march, and they were in the ship for days. They were in the bottom, the deep holds, a half a feet thick of human urine and feces. When the hull was torn into the Nazi Titanic, the lower decks filled with water and virtually everybody drowned instantly. The Baltic Sea is 42 degrees Fahrenheit in May. Hypothermia. The two Jakubowicz brothers, kids, tread water all the way to the ceiling. They're about to take their last breath when some brave Holocaust survivors from the top deck went below decks and opened the hatch. And the hands pulled them out at the last moment. They ran through the ship, having to swim. This hallway was on fire. The ship's rolling over, so to get out, you have to go to the bottom. Remember the Poseidon adventure, everybody? Ernest Borgnine and Shelley Winters, am I getting that right? Yeah, although no one in here is old enough to remember that one either. They get out. Berek jumps overboard. Jozek can't swim, he stays on board. Berek is picked up by a German fisherman who takes him to town. He's naked, he's freezing, he's dying. He puts him in a bakery. There's no food, but he lights the oven and wraps up in a burlap sack. The German fisherman won't tell him his name because he's afraid of the Nazis. I have tried since 2014 to find out his name so we could list him in Yad Vashem as among the righteous. He sailed around the bay under fire, plucking survivors out of the water. We don't know who he is. In the morning, the door was kicked down of the bakery, and Berek thought he was dead. It was the British. They took him to the hospital, clothing. When he walked into the hospital, guess who was in there? His brother Jozek. They clothed them, both of them moved to Boston. They got married, successful careers, had long lives. I assume Patriots and Red Sox fans, I would guess. I talked to his widow, who was still alive when I was working on my research. One more, that's Francis Akos, A-K-O-S. He was a Jewish violinist from Budapest, and he survived multiple camps as well. He jumped overboard and was clinging to floating wood. The problem was after the ship was blown up, the planes turned around, and with those big machine guns, they strafed everybody still in the water. Somehow they missed him. He swims to shore. It's 3 kilometers away. Michael Phelps could not swim 3 kilometers under those conditions. He made it ashore. As he comes ashore, there's a Hitler Youth with a machine gun ready to kill him. He hears in German, "Hands up, criminal." All of a sudden he hears gunfire and the kid is killed. It's the second letter, General Mills Roberts and the 6th Commandant. They saved him. He moved to Chicago, where he eventually became the first chair violinist for the Chicago Symphony, retired as the concertmaster. I spoke to him days before he passed away. In closing, we think we know all there is to know about history. We don't know the half of it. A number of organizations have been tracking anti-Semitic hate. The ADL, Southern Poverty Law Center, the FBI, Brennan, Brandeis, so forth and so on. They found that from the 60s on, the numbers had dropped each year until 2016. And in 2016, the numbers spiked to unprecedented highs, as we all know. And whether it's Charlottesville, Tree of Life, shootings outside an embassy, microaggressions on a college campus, desecration of Jewish synagogues or Jewish cemeteries, swastikas, and it's corresponding with a spike in neo-Nazi, neo-Confederate, white Aryan supremacist, and Holocaust-denying organizations. This is all going on today. I believe that we need to retell these stories to every successive generation. And I think we, people like Jessica and myself, who she uncovered some remarkable things about the Nuremberg trials, I think we have a responsibility to keep digging and digging and digging to unearth all these stories while there's still survivors, while there's still witnesses, while there's still liberators, champions among us. And that's the unknown story of the Nazi Titanic. Thank you.